Hey everybody, and welcome to Angel-Meadows-A Conversation with Friends. I am Mama D, also known as Darlene, your hostess. Hopefully somebody will come into the chat room and tell me if they have sound. I have a guest in the chat room, and unless, my darling, you have signed up with Two Ducks, you will not be able to chat in the chat room. So, yeah, there's Jim. My guest this evening is Jim Lanford. I met him through a crazy bunch of friends, and he is an ex-police officer, fireman, and he is a paranormal investigator that sort of floats around and does his thing with people where he's needed. And I think that's about covers it, right, Jim?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. So other than that, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. And let's pray to God that this show is being recorded.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm just a plain old guy that has a lot of fun. I grew up and raised in Kentucky and spent a lot of my life in Kansas after I graduated high school. And I have been, well, all of my family has been in emergency services, either law enforcement or firefighting. My mom was the very first 911 dispatcher in our county.
Okay.
And we have spent our life serving. That's just what we do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so, but you started out as a police officer,
Yeah,
and then,
Wichita, Kansas, Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department. I actually went to apply to the fire department when I turned 21, and they had a 3-year waiting list. And the girl convinced me to put in an application for law enforcement, and next thing I know, that's where I was.
okay, so you first wanted to be a fireman,
Always,
and
for a long time.
then you became a police officer. How long did you stay in the police force?
11 years,
11
between
years.
3 departments, yeah.
That was one heck of a long waiting list to be a fireman.
Yeah, the city of Wichita their fire department is one of the best in the country, and they just don't have a turnover. I mean, people stay there until they retire.
Well, I'm sure that they enjoyed waiting for you, because once you got there, you probably did a smashing job. Okay, so, I know a lot of people don't like to talk about their life in uniform, but I'm a nosy old lady and I'm going to ask you about it. What was and what still is, because we see a lot of the men and women in uniform who are being talked bad about, even though there are bad people in every department, whether it's police, fire, paranormal, cashiers at deponers or convenience stores. There are bad people out there. But what is the worst thing, aside from the disrespect, that you can say that people show or don't show to the people in uniform, fire department, police, whatever?
They take them for granted, you know. Most of these people, if people don't know, volunteer firefighters make up 75% of the firefighters in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
75%. These are people that do it for free. These are the people who get up from the dining room table and take off in the middle of the meal, middle of the night, miss birthdays and holidays, and for no pay whatsoever. And, it would be nice if they were recognized a little more often. People, and honestly too, some communities don't know that their firefighters are just volunteers. The volunteer department I was on here, we were a good sized department. We had 2 stations, we had 7 fire trucks, 40 something firefighters, and they thought we were paid firefighters for years because we acted like we were paid firefighters. We trained, we were responded quickly, and it wasn't until we had an open house and a town hall meeting one time that people realized, hey, wait a minute, these guys don't stay at the station at night. They're coming from their houses, and people need to realize how many people are out there doing this stuff for free, and they need to show them a little gratitude.
I agree. Where I live, most of the firefighters, a lot of them are like you, are volunteers, and I've seen different shows on the TV where firefighters, volunteer firefighters, what they do, and it was a show in the States, and I can't remember what state it was in, and there was one gentleman who was a volunteer firefighter, but he created a company that brought out food and drinks so that when you guys were fighting fires, volunteered or paid, you had somebody that would, supply the water, supply coffee, because it's not an easy job, and a lot of people say, well, they chose the job. Yes, these guys choose the job, these men and women choose the job, but without those who do choose the job, to do the volunteer work, where would we be? And as much as I love my men and women in military service, and every time somebody says, I was in the service, everybody says, thank you for your service. And again, fire department and police officers, and they don't get the same thank yous.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, when they come into my store, I do harass them just like I harass everybody else. And they know I love them, and I haven't, people need to accept the fact that, yes, you do this job, you did this job without being paid for it. And it's not something you're going to stand there and say, hey, I don't get paid to do this, I'm just doing this. Because it's not part of who you are. It's what you do, it's what you feel that you have to do to help. Like I said, you are my little man of service. You help in so
even in
many
law
ways.
enforcement,
Mm-hmm.
Wichita is a big city, big town, about 1 million people, a couple of million counting the county. We had 325 officers, but we had 125 reserve deputies that did this for free. 125.
Wow.
And we counted on them. I mean, that's how we kept our overtime down. That's how we, people call in sick or we had big events. That's, it wasn't for those people. There would be more taxes, but,
Yeah,
you
and whether in
gotta love
Canada
us.
or the States, whether it's in Canada or the States, we pay enough taxes as it is. So,
Yeah.
any which way that we can, save it. So yes, people out there, you need to volunteer. Find out if you can volunteer as a fire personnel, or even, like I said, even making sure that there's coffees brought to the sites. I know up here we have, the Red Cross, and you guys do as well.
That's
But,
who responds for us. All we have to do is request them and they'll come to the scene to either take care of us or even take care of the family if
yep.
it's a house fire or something like that.
Yeah.
But, we were very fortunate to work well with the Red Cross.
I think sometimes the show that I watched, I wish I could remember the name of the show. The husband was the volunteer firefighter, and he would get up and get his call and go. But his wife would come behind him with all the stock that was necessary. Yes, the Red Cross was there when when they needed, but this woman, she knew her husband was doing what he was doing because, he wanted to help, he wanted to serve. So she and her kids, and in the middle of Christmas dinner, he got called to a fire. So she packed up the Christmas supper and made it into sandwiches and brought it to where the fire was, and made sure that everybody was, who was hungry and needed food or whatever. And they did that for the firefighters and for the people that were affected by the fire themselves as well. So it's something that people don't think of. Volunteering is not it's not something that everybody just does,
And there's a lot fewer. There is a lot of, fire departments that are having to shut down or combine with other departments. They're increasing the size of the response area with fewer people now,
Yeah.
which means longer times. I know here locally when we look to go to some type of a taxing district to help take care of our needs, people were saying, that's what I got insurance for. That's great. Is your insurance agent going to get out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 foot of snow, and come to your house when it's on fire and pull you out of it? He's not going to do that.
No.
That's
Exactly.
not, that's not what your insurance is for. Your insurance is for your stuff.
Yeah.
Fire department is for you. They're going to try to save your stuff, but their first priority is the people who are at these places.
Yeah. The living, breathing
Yes.
entities of
Pet.
the household, pets,
Yes.
and because I've seen the shows and the announcements how firefighters go back in for pets, and so guys, not only do we have to thank our military for our service, but the volunteers of the fire department, the police department, the ambulance, the emergencies, not paramedics, first responders of all types need to be thanked. You know,
Yeah.
if
That's
you pop
awesome.
in the street, see a fire department, yeah, hey, thanks, good job. You know, it doesn't take
Yeah.
much for people to say thank you.
Nope.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Nope. And it's appreciated as much as the military. And I've heard other things about military are, when sometimes they hear thanks for the service, and they don't need thanks. They did this job because they knew that was what they had to do. And I think that's what the volunteers are the same thing. Some of them, they don't need it, but it's appreciated. It's not something,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a need. It's an appreciation. When somebody says thank
Right.
you, it's like, for me, when I was growing up, we had magic words, was please and thank you. And I don't hear that anymore. And I use it as often as I can. People go, well, why'd you thank me? Because you did something to help me, or you did something to help somebody else. A thank you, it doesn't take much, and it just might put that smile on somebody's face. It might just,
Exactly. You can. We have to watch out as I was assistant chief for a number of years, and the thing we had to watch out for is the new people come in and they were there every time. You got to watch out for burnout because after a certain amount of time of doing that over and over and literally every day, it's easy to get burned out sometimes, especially when you don't get that thank you, or
hmm
you just get the, hey, y'all blocked the road for 2 hours and I was trying to get to the movies. I'm sorry somebody died.
yeah,
I feel your pain not getting to the movies, but I'm really sorry somebody died in front of you today.
yeah, yeah. No, sometimes people don't think, and unfortunately, it's too. There's too much of that going on. People don't think about everybody else. They're so into thinking about themselves. Yes, we do need to think about ourselves, but we also have to think about what goes on around us. It's not a me world. It's a we world. Ooh, that's
Yes,
good.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so how did we go from police officer, fire department, fireman, to paranormal investigating?
Mm.
See, I like
Well,
these jumps. Okay.
yeah, I mean, the in law when I went started in a little small town. It's 4 square miles. It had a pretty decent population. There's about 3,000 people, and they
Mhm.
had 25 churches. Uh, and we were a suburb of the city, so I mean we were very busy. But when I transferred to the sheriff's department, I got put into an area of very low income, and in the early 1980s, when I started in law enforcement, the gangs were really starting to make themselves prevalent. And Wichita is right in the middle of the United States. So east, west, north, and south, it was right in the middle of all major highways. Uh, the gangs were getting out of control, so I ended up doing some things as a patrolman out there every day. I got a Polaroid camera and started taking pictures. I had 3x5 index cards. I would write down all the information I could about these guys. And I started keeping this on my own. So then
Mhm.
it turned into, we had people we couldn't identify. They called me over and I'm sitting there hand digging through trying to identify these people, and they refused to give their names and, these kinds, who their associates are. And it kind of just took off from there. About the same time, the city and the county decided, hey, we need to do something to deal with the gang. So, I got tasked and promoted to start a gang task force. Of course, back then everything was politically correct. We were a special community action team. So, but
Ooh.
I did that for 8 years. That was most of my time was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And day in and day out, I got to see the worst of the worst. During that time, I had the misfortune of being shot twice. The second time, uh, it turned out pretty bad. But my daughter and my wife came to the hospital, and she was pretty upset. My daughter was, and asked me to quit. And it so much it gets into your heart and your blood, you don't want to give it up.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a promotion and went to the academy as an instructor for a year, but it just wasn't the same as being out on the street. So I resigned and actually moved to the Kansas City area to take up a welding trade. And my brother was still in Kentucky, and he was working for a big company that fabricates steel, and so they paid to have me move out to Kentucky and go work for them. Once I got settled in, when you get into emergency services and you've been around it all your life, it's just something you got to do. So I went to the local volunteer fire department and said, okay, I'm here. And I spent 19 years in the volunteer service up until 2015. But whenever I was younger, I had to experience my grandparents or my great-grandparents owned some property that backed up to property that we lived in. Our backyards connected. When my grandparents passed away, my great-grandparents passed away, my grandparents decided they were going to fix it up and move into the house. As a home that was built around 1840s, and we were doing renovations on it, and one night we had lights kept coming on, and my dad was like, I told you guys to shut the lights off. We did. So we would go over and check everything. Everything was locked. Turn all the lights out. We went home, and shortly after, the lights were back on again. But this time he grabs his gun, and we go over there, and we're walking around the house, and you're hearing footsteps.
Okay.
And the main part of the house, and what they were trying to do is they had a little section that they were going to make into a little apartment that they were going to rent out. And so it had like a big loop that you could go through the whole house. There was a big circle you could do. We would get in there. We would be in the area where the carpet was. You could hear footsteps, and it was always like they were on the opposite side of where we were. So me and my dad split up. He went one way, I went the other, and we come around. We met. We couldn't find nobody. We did this forever. For about an hour, we just went over this house, and finally we were standing in the kitchen, and we hear footsteps going upstairs, and which was one of the lights that kept turning on. And my dad just finally hollered out, Uncle, I can't remember his name. It's just me, Butch, we're, Mom and Dad's moving into the house. And, nothing ever happened again after that. And that's when we were told that, one of my dad's uncles who had lived upstairs, he, came ill. He got to be about 500 pounds, I think they said, at one point. And when he passed away up there, they literally had to cut the window out up there and take him out with a crane because they couldn't get him down the stairs because they're so small.
Okay.
And, that was my first experience with paranormal.
And you were about how old?
I was 13.
Teenagers.
Yeah.
That was scary.
And I never thought much more about, it was an experience I had, and it just was just that. It's experience. I didn't really think about it for a long time, until me and my wife was on vacation one time. I had bought a video recorder at Sears, and we went on vacation, and we were going to go on this ghost walk in, the historical town here in Kentucky. And, so we're walking, we get to the Talbot Tavern, which was built in the late 1700s. And I'm taking all this video, and the lady that was leading the tour was called Patty Starr. I don't know if you've ever heard of her or not.
The name sounds familiar.
She's wrote a lot of books on the paranormal, and she said, that camera has night shot on it, and I had no idea what she was talking about. So she showed me how this works, and taking video in the dark, and she was actually calling spirits on command to go to people's hands. So they would be standing out, and they would go to people's hands, and then they would take off. And we had a big skeptical guy in the group. You could tell his wife or girlfriend had dragged him there, and he was just like mad at the world. And he's up there, and he's, she gets these things to go to his hands. And when we were done, there was something came out of the wall I could see on the camera. It kind of looked like the smile from the Cheshire Cat, Alice in Wonderland. Okay. It comes out of the wall and comes towards you. I said, "Hey, man, there's something coming up right behind you." Well, he turns around and like hugs, and it just disappears. So I get back out in the hallway, and I replay this for this guy, and he goes from, this jokester to, oh crap, he gives me his business card, said, "Hey, please send me a copy of that." And that was kind of the night I got the bug. I started researching, started getting into it a little bit more, and I did, just kind of was doing my own stuff. And my dad was telling me about things that's happened at his Masonic Lodge. And he goes, there's all these things going on. We're seeing people, we're hearing kids, stuff's being moved. Some guys are so scared they would only go in when there's other guys there. I said, I tell you what, I know some people. I'll get them to come in and we'll start checking it out. And I contacted Keith Age and the Louisville Ghost Hunters. And they came down and did their first investigation. While they were setting up, two of their females was on the balcony above the main lodge hall. And one had her back to the stairs, and they were talking. They were probably 2 feet apart, and they were having a conversation. And all of a sudden, one of the girls was thrown down one flight of stairs, and she hit the concrete wall. Me and another guy there, both were firefighters, and we ran up, and we started treating her. We had to call an ambulance. She's ended up spending a week in the hospital with concussion. So that was my first live experience of just how far the stuff would go.
Yeah.
So they shut down for the night. They came back a week later, and they ended up with like 12 pieces of evidence that we caught, voices and things that we heard. I was like, okay, so here's a reputable group. We got this. I said, I know another group who's real reputable. I said, so I had them come in. And they investigated, and they have another 10 or 15 things. And we ended up running into a local group, and I talked to them, and he was very much into the scientific part of it, very, very much into that. So I said, all right, you guys, we had them come in, and they investigated. And they had, a dozen things that came up. So, I take this stuff to the membership and look, you all have something going on here. The lodge is very old. They were founded in 1823. The property where they're at now, they moved into in 1844 when they built their first building. In 1911, they had a fire, and then they built a new building built in 1913, which is the one that's there now. But a lot of these people who attended this lodge were high-ranking Confederate generals, captains,
okay,
governors of the state. The main commander of the famed Orphan Brigade they were from that lodge. So, during a battle, General Morgan came up from Nashville when he made his big raid all the way up to Ohio. He stopped here in town and they had a battle here. And he actually took over the town, and they used the lodge. The downstairs was used as an overflow hospital from the church next door, which was the hospital. and they kept all the prisoners on the second floor where the lodge floor was.
Mm.
So, now we have all the potential energy from, that happening. So it was just a wild place. I took this information. I said, look, I said, what do we want to do with it? I ended up becoming a member of the lodge, and we opened it up to the public. Said, we took the money to do renovations. Of course, being an old building, it always took a lot of upkeep. And we did a lot of renovations. We put air conditioning in, which it had never had in it before, things like that. But, over the almost 5 years that I opened to the public, I ended up with almost 1,000 pieces of evidence. And, I mean, when you get so many people who have the same EVPs of the little girl that was there, her name was Abigail. She always consistently said she was 8 years old. We've got sounds of soldiers. You hear sounds of people saying, they said so-and-so's dead. It was just blowing my mind. And I was fortunate through that to become very good friends with people in the paranormal community. The John Zappis, he came in from one of his shows, A Haunted Collector there. Most of the Ghost Hunter and Ghost Hunter International people who were out there, they all came in and did investigations there. Chris and Amy and Joe Chin and Paul Bradford and Scott Tepperman. And, so I've been fortunate enough to meet all these guys through all this. And, through my knowledge from watching so many groups come in and investigate, with their different equipment or, the way the questions they ask, then I also got to, for the first time, be around people who have, mystical type power, the mediums and the empaths. And that was my first time, getting to those, be around that type of stuff. So it really made me a good investigator to the point that groups rascally would call me and say, hey, I have this case and I could use your help. And, so I would go with them to help them, because they want somebody who's, I always call myself a believing skeptic. Yeah.
I like that.
Because I mean, you can't explain things that happened, yet I don't have anything solid enough to say that exists. So, like I said, through that and a lot of travels I've got to do, I've got to meet some wonderful people, and it's turned into a whole new family for me. I've had friends stretch from one end of the country to the other. And it's great to see them every once in a while, or, to get a call and say, hey, I need some help. I'm on the way.
Cool. Of all the places that you've been to, is there any one place that you haven't been to that you really want to go to?
Trans-Allegheny Asylum. It's definitely, Gettysburg is definitely high on the list. But I like to do a lot of the historical places, anything that has a historical meaning to it, good or bad. I mean, a lot of these little places that maybe started as a little hospital for the community, and then it turned into a poorhouse or an asylum. And all the stories, of people just dropping family members off, or because somebody got hurt, they said, well, he can't speak right, so he must be, some kind of mentally ill, or.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard a few stories of that in different places, yeah.
Yeah, so it's all of that, how we treat each other as
the way we treat each other as humans as well as
or the lack of being human sometimes. I mean, it's awful the way some of these people are treated in some of these places.
Yeah.
Yeah, Larry, I do own a little bit of equipment. I don't rely heavily on equipment. I have Ovulus, I have mel meters and, trimeters, infrared cameras and things like that. Mostly I rely on my audio recorder. I do, live EVP type sessions. I wear my earphones, and I try to rely on those kinds of things that are a little more, sustainable, things that hold a little more value to it, I guess. And,
For those of you who aren't in the chat room, the question was asked by Larry. Jim, do you personally own any equipment? And if so, what are they? So that's what he's talking about. That's how he's
yeah,
answering it.
I went down from 6 cases of equipment to just 2 now that I take with me. So I've really cut back on a lot of it as over time people have been able to show that maybe this doesn't work as well, or that I just don't personally have a trust in something. I usually don't use it, but I say here lately I've had a lot of things happen that has well, a long time I thought maybe it was my sixth sense from law enforcement, because when you work around a bunch of people who you constantly have to fear that's going to hurt you, which the second time I got shot, somebody came up that actually was going to shoot me in the back with a shotgun, and luckily another officer saw and called on the radio. I turned around and I ended up taking it from the front instead of in the back. And it's I probably should have been dead.
Nah, you hadn't met
But I
me yet,
was
so you wasn't time
right,
critical.
but I wasn't. I mean, there was a lot of damage and things that happened, and even later, as I was a firefighter, I had one day I actually took off work because I was sick. I had been to the doctor. I was coming back home to actually pull into the driveway where I work at to give them the doctor's note. And we had a call that was a house fire. Somebody had said that they were committing suicide, taking medicine. It's a house on fire. So I'm out left. I get to the station being a volunteer. There's only 2 of us. So we get on the truck, we drive out. Most of the house has been engulfed in flames. You know, I go in by myself. I'm doing, searching everything I can. We didn't find her in the part that was unburned. Come back out. By the time I get that happens, there's a little more help there. Me and one of the other officers go in and we knock down the biggest part of the fire, and we were looking for in the couch area where the couch and stuff was. And actually I fell through the floor and was stuck. Knew I broke my leg. And of course, volunteer department, you don't have much. I didn't have a radio on me. So, I'm yelling as best you can with the air mask on, hey, somebody come give me a hand. I saw a light come up to me, which I just assumed was the fire, the guy I went in with. It was him coming over. I was pulled up out of the hole and I crawled out the door. The next day I took him, this gift card to a steakhouse. I said, thank you. He goes, for what? I said, you got me out of out of the hole. I appreciate that. He goes, it wasn't me. He goes, when I got to you, you were already crawling up the door. So, so now, these things have kind of opened my mind, and I'm very more receptive to what my body tells me a lot of times when I do investigations.
Yeah. Now, when we were preparing for this show, I asked you, I said, I've got names of I'm going to call them gadgets, of equipment that I've heard as I watch shows and I hear people talk and listen to their shows. And sometimes people just shoot out words and they don't think that there's people who don't understand, like me. I've never been on an investigation. I will go one day. I will get there. But for right now, I'm going to do it from the comfort of my chair in front of my laptop. But there are words, there's equipment that I don't understand, and I've seen them in use, like
Okay.
with the video. So an SLS camera. Now, I've
Okay.
seen it being used,
Right.
but what exactly is it getting? Or do you know?
I'm learning. Actually, one of the members of the group Paranormal Mysteries that I've been working with, filming with, um, they have someone who can actually build these, and he's been trying to explain it to me. What it's doing is there's a game that was made that's designed to pick out the outline of a person,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where they get the stick figures from.
Okay.
This energy that's able that this piece of machine can read, and so that's kind of the idea behind it. All the dots you see is a laser that's trying to feed information back to this device,
Okay.
and
Now, who is it in the paranormal mystery? Let's try this one again. Who is it in paranormal mysteries that is building this? Is it Dave?
I'm sorry.
Is it Dave?
Actually, I think it's Brian that's doing it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I think
He hasn't,
Brian's
he,
in it.
he hasn't said yes to be on the show yet, or actually he has, but we're still confirming it. So I'll get
Oh,
him in
okay.
now too.
Yeah.
He's giving me a
It's a
question
new
for the
piece
next
of
one.
equipment. I've never used one.
Okay.
Like I say, our group has one, and we have used it a few times. Uh, it's, I know we, they don't rely on it a lot,
Mhm.
but it is just a tool. It's one thing to have something come up on a meter, or there's something come up on a camera, or maybe somebody says they feel something. To have just one thing, it's an experience. But when somebody says, I feel something in the room, then you get a UDP as somebody saying, hey, I don't want you in this room. And then you get like a REM pod or something going off that identifies the energy in the room. When you
That's
get
my
two or
next
three
one.
things, then it morphs, this is, wait a minute, we really did have something happen.
Yeah. Okay, so that was, you left into the next one. A REM pod. Now, I've seen it, but what is
Hmm.
it doing? And I'm guessing it's picking up energies.
It is a device that picks up, pretty much like most of the equipment is basically the same. It's just a different design, or they call it by a different name.
Okay.
Whether it's an L meter, or if it's a RAM pod, or it's something like it. All that measures energies, and that's why a lot of times you have to, you have to turn off your cell phone so you're not emitting a signal, so it doesn't set these things off.
That makes sense.
That's one of the first things we do when we start an investigation. Everybody puts their phones on an airplane mode or turns them off, and then you have to stay a certain way back, because each person's body gives off a certain amount of
Yeah.
electric energy, and we have to
Okay.
keep a distance. And we have one in the group. I know the first couple of investigations, he said the thing never goes off, it never goes off. We went to the RCI asylum, and we take it into a room, and all of a sudden it starts, Jay starts talking to someone, and whoever it was wasn't happy that we were there in this particular room. It was one of
Okay.
the church rooms, and it just started going off, and it would go off to his, everything he said. He would ask a question, and he would, it would go off, or with yes or no, or however he was asking the questions. And this is in the center of a room that's probably 20 foot by 20 foot, and we're in the corners, a long ways away.
Yeah.
And this is a building that doesn't have, the first thing we do is go through with our meters, and we check baselines. Is there areas that has high EMF or anything like that, so we know where to avoid putting this equipment at, so it's not falsely activated.
Okay, so
And
EMF is electromagnetic field, right?
yes,
Yeah. Yeah, I do pay
but
attention.
yeah, that's like I said, most of the equipment. That's a lot of what you're measuring. That's what we're looking for. I mean, energy cannot be created or destroyed.
Nope.
So I mean, when somebody passes, that energy has to, it still
Yeah.
exists.
Mhm. You're talking
So
to a Reiki master, so I understand energy.
yeah,
So yeah, but
so that's pretty much what we're having to rely on a lot.
okay.
Uh,
Now a Spirit Box app. I've seen where people have spirit boxes. They're created and they're built. I've seen quite a few really nice ones. But I've also seen where they have as an app on the phone. How reliable is an app on the phone compared to a spirit box that was actually built?
And
I'm asking for your opinion. Oh, puppy.
yeah, he's already been out, but he thinks he needs to go again. Uh, I'm a little up in the air when it comes to them. Pretty much what it is, it takes the radio signals, a lot of them, and it goes out and it scans. A lot of the stuff you can control the speed of how fast it scans, whether it's AM or FM.
Mm-hmm.
And what it's trying to do is scan through these and catch the in-between stations and gives a place where the people that you're trying to contact can come through. It's to me, it's kind of hit and miss that sometimes you're going to get a voice from a radio station. They're going to say yes or no or something every once in a while, and it just so happens to come up when you ask a question. Now, I have had somebody who did a session at the lodge one time, and the F word kept coming up, which I know that's not going to be a radio station because they'll lose their you come and take the license.
Yeah.
And it was very direct. It was talking to him. It was calling him by his name. That's probably, of the sessions I've seen, that's probably the only one that had any account to me. But I know there's a lot of other people that are also looking at using other radio waves that aren't being used, like by radio stations and those kinds of things. They're trying to get it into a area where there's not going to be any contamination from those to try to do the same thing. Me personally, I would rather use white noise or blue noise or something like that, pretty much like static on a TV.
Yep.
To give that as a vehicle to happen. That's because you're not going to get that interference.
Yeah. Well, I have listened to a few people who have played EVPs and or spirit the noise, the sounds, the words they get from the spirit boxes, and I rather they don't tell me what they heard because then it's like doesn't this cloud look like a horse? And you're looking at it, you're going to see what people sort of put in the word in your head, so you see the picture in your head, so it sort of goes out. So somebody tells me, well, I heard them say, Amadisa Putz. You're going to hear, your mind will make it hear what's here. So if you're going to listen to something, listen to it without somebody else's, to me, so without somebody else's opinion on what it says. And then if y'all come back with the same things, Amadisa Putz.
we use Echo Box.
Okay.
Here lately, and we have the same thing. You can sit in the room, there will be 5 people in there, and you can hear 4 different things being said.
Mhm.
So who's right, who's wrong? But that's when you go back to your evidence review, and listen to your recordings, and you can better understand or slow it down or whatever you need to do to understand what's being said. But that also goes along with situation, I guess.
Mm.
Questions that are being asked, what's being told, and those kinds of things.
Mm. Now, it's funny because when your dog started barking, my dog just sat at my feet, and you're not on speaker. He's just sitting there staring at me. Okay, could you guys stop talking mentally to each other? Yeah! That's a little one.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of the work that you do, people do call you and ask you, to come consult. We're going to use the word consult with them. But lately you've been working with paranormal mysteries. Now this is how I met you, with your paranormal mysteries. And I've never actually I've watched a couple of other teams when they do their investigations, And I know that you could be there like an all night thing and only get 10 minutes in all total of actual, you know, uh, information and proof for certain people that be like, and so many people go, well, you know, on this show on the TV, they've got like, it's always, because you're working a whole weekend thing down into a 1 hour show or a half-hour show. So, but one of the things I've noticed of the paranormal mysteries team is that they enjoy themselves. And I have seen a couple of teams that are very, very serious. Now maybe, you know, off camera, and I'm just saying from live things, they're not as serious. But, do you think, like they do that when you bring up the energy of the team, like you guys are having a good time, you're laughing, you're enjoying yourself, but you're doing what you're doing, you're taking it seriously. Do you find that bringing up the energy with the laughter and the good mood brings in more, evidence, brings in more spirit, more energy?
Uh,
Because you've been on more than one investigation with them. Have you
yeah,
noticed that?
yeah. I don't know if it brings it up. I mean, I have been with them, you know, on investigations, and we've had experiences,
Hmm.
you know, but nothing really. I mean, when we went to RCI, we had experiences happen, but there was nothing on the recorder. We got no EVPs. We got nothing to back up the experiences that we had. So, you know, I mean, it depends on what somebody calls evidence. And as far as how groups work, I mean, for the most part, I don't know any group that's just so serious that they don't have, you know, a lot of times you only see when they're investigating. And,
Hmm.
um, there's, I mean, if you watch Paranormal Mysteries, you'll see those serious times.
Yep.
You know, depends on who we're contacting, why we're talking to them. Uh, you know, we went from one room to talking to, you know, the lady of the house who was, you know, killed, and, you know, we have a very serious topic, and that's what the room's attitude is. We'd go across the hall and we're just joking around. Maybe to us, we're taking a break, and then all of a sudden we're contacted. Uh, you know, we had that happen, and Jay got in contact with the guy who's supposed to work on the property. He burnt the property down once and got in trouble. He'd been in and out of jail many times,
Okay.
and you know, Jay was joking with him, and you know, it was almost like a banter going back and forth. I mean, they were, you know, this is where you get things like we were using the Echo Box, and, you know, you get something confused to call you a goat nut, you know.
Everybody
I'm
says
sorry,
Joe
nut
Kudo?
sack. I take it back. I'm sorry. Nutsack. He gets called a
Okay.
nutsack, okay? That's not something that you're expecting. That came out of the blue because
Yeah.
Jay said something. Jay called him a convict or something like that, and they come back with that, you know.
That's funny.
So, you know, again, we heard it, but yet there's no EVP, there was no, you know, nothing else in the room other
Yeah.
than he was getting responses. He was getting yes and no. He was getting, you know, words that were coming through directed to him,
Very cool.
you know,
There's a
and
question. There's a question in the chat room from Larry again. Thanks, Larry. Have you ever been called to detect and clean a room, house, apartment of negative spirits?
I personally do not do that. I don't have that training. I'm not a minister. I have had training, you know, I went to Bishop Long's demonology classes just to try to identify some of these things to keep myself out of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I leave that to other people. A lot of times that's what we have to do. We can go in and say, you know, yes, you have this type of issue, and then you have to refer them on to somebody else because that's just not what we know how to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, part of controlling yourself as an investigator. You know, you can't just say you're going to go in and save the world, and not one person's is going to know how to do everything.
Yeah, and you can't have a jack of all trades doing something that's very important.
Yeah.
So yes, and I like that about most of the teams that I watch and follow, is that they're not, they sit there and say, like you said, okay, I found this type of thing and I know it's there, but it's not what I do. It's not who I am. So, luckily enough, I believe that a lot of the teams and a lot of the people sort of share each other's information. So if you cannot do it personally, like, you'll find somebody who can.
Right.
You know, it's like I always say, if I can't help you, I'll find somebody who can help you, no matter what it takes. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, you know, it's like the lodge. We had, you know, the little girl. There was at one time there was a dentist office that was in the building. They rented out part of to a dentist, and 2 ladies died in the dentist office. You know, so we had that. Through investigating, we kind of determined that this little girl could have died at the hands of her own father, who was the headmaster of the school. And, you know, there's through years of investigating, you know, we believe that she may even be buried on that property. So, but no one has gone in and said, okay, you got to leave the building. You know, it's just whether you're doing something for a family, for a building, for, you know, what the situation is.
Yeah. We have another question from Larry.
Okay.
He said, first off, he said thanks.
All right.
And then he says, what steps, if any, do you take to protect yourself in the event that you can encounter an entity?
I have, personally,
Mm-hmm.
I do a prayer. You know, I have a bag of stones that were specifically, you know, I went to someone and said, you know, what stones do I need? I had them. I regularly clean them. And also, I mean, and before I leave, I always, say a prayer. I had something almost leave with me one time. The one night I was in a hurry and I didn't say a prayer. I got in my truck to leave and I had a speaker system in my truck, that's supposed to work with your phone, your cell phone. You connect to it and you can speak while you're driving, hands free.
Uh-huh.
As I started to leave, music started playing over this. For one, it was not turned on. And number two, the only way any music could play through it was from my phone because it was connected only to my phone.
Okay.
And I immediately stopped and said, look, you know, you can't leave with me. If you're not allowed to leave with me, you need to stay where you're at. And it stopped, and that was it. So,
Yeah.
Larry, I don't know what all crystals I have. Because I know there's tiger's eye, amethyst. But I went to those people who know about crystals,
Mm-hmm.
and they helped me choose the wood I did need and how to properly take care of them, cleaning them, you know, putting them out in the moon and everything I need to take care of them, make sure they're working properly.
Perfect. Thank you. Wow. This has been fun. I have to admit, good for anybody who's listening, if you'll notice, this conversation goes very smooth and very kind and mellow. Somebody was a little bit nervous about being on my show. So have you got over the nerves about being with me on my show?
I'm sorry, you cut in and out.
Yeah, I noticed that. Have you gotten over being nervous about being with me on
Oh
my
yeah,
show?
I was more worried about asking of the personal stuff. I don't mind talking about paranormal or a specific
The
place.
only personal stuff I need to know is what kind of puppies you got. Because they want to be on air.
So I got a Yorkie and a Yorkie too. They're little babies.
Mm-hmm. They're daddy's fur babies. Well, we are just about at an end. So let's see. There are a lot of events coming up. Are you going to try and be at any of them?
I am working on that. I retired in January and thought I was retired, but now it looks like I'm going to have to go back to work for a little bit to get insurance. So I'm hoping nothing interferes with it, but I'm hoping to make Ash Bash for, so I can see Jay in his dress. And
Yeah.
I'm supposed to also dress up in a dress and do my dollar dances to help him raise money for charity. If I do attend, I will be in a dress. They're telling me I need to be in a black evening gown, so
Yes.
I'll have to be out and find that. But and then Paranormal Toledo is definitely big on the list. We plan on taking shenanigans to a whole new level that weekend.
Oh yes. There's going to be snakes and spiders involved in that one.
Yes.
And I wish I could get down there with you guys, but for some reason me and my passport don't want to get along. But eventually I will get down. But I know that any of the events that you guys go to, you will be having a grand old time, and you get along so well with Jay and Jason and Joe and oh my Lord.
Yeah.
I can just see the poor girls in there.
Oh, don't say poor girls. They can be worse than we are at any given moment.
No, Teresa and Tina are angels.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And their halos are held up by their horns. I promise you.
Be nice. These are my girls.
I love them to death. And they keep us on a fine line sometimes.
Yes, they do. All right. Well, I thank you very much for coming to the show and letting me pick your brain for certain things and sharing with us what you have. And hopefully next year you'll be back.
I will do that. Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. All right, everybody. I'll see y'all next week. And my guest will be Jody James. Y'all be good. Y'all behave. And remember, when you see a butterfly, it's me telling you to behave. And if it's not me, it's somebody else. Be good, everyone.